Welcome to Cardboard Chemistry. I'm your host, MTG Labman, and in today's episode, I'd like to talk about my favorite white cards from the Lorwyn Eclipsed set. Lorwyn Eclipsed is coming out soon, and we have the full card image gallery now, so I just wanted to go through and create an episode for each color, and we'll start with white in the Wooburg order. So without further ado, let me go through. This isn't the most powerful cards in the set. Granted, some of the cards are powerful. Just cards that I like from each color, and just what I personally feel like I would play out of the set. So first up in white, we have Adept Water Shaper, 2-in-1 white for a 3/4 Merfolk Cleric, and it says other tap creatures you control have indestructible. Really like the synergy on this card, especially with the old Lorwyn block Merfolk. A lot of them had tapped abilities, and it allows those creatures to be indestructible. It also helps when attacking. If you don't have creatures with vigilance, when they attack, they gain indestructible. Also helps with piloting vehicles. So if you're piloting, all of your creatures you tap to pilot a vehicle also become indestructible. So I think that's a really, really fun card, really good card. I could see that getting played in a lot of decks. Next up is Brigid Kalkin's Heart, 2-in-1 for a 3/2 legendary Kithkin warrior. And whenever this creature enters or transforms into Brigid Kalkin's Heart, create a 1/1 green and white Kithkin creature token. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay 1 if you do transform Brigid. And she transforms into Brigid Dowan's Mind, and her ability is tap, add X green or X white, where X is the number of other creatures you control. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you can pay a white to transform her back to the front side. Now, this card's super powerful. Gaia's Cradle on a stick. Basically, you're going to get her down turn 2 or so. Probably want to run a lot of Mana Dorks in the deck. And with that, once you pay the green, I don't think you're ever flipping her back to the one side to create a Kithkin token. I think you're using the mana from her backside to basically fuel the rest of your deck. It's going to be Selesnya good stuff, Selesnya tokens, probably go wide, a lot of X spells, a lot of ways to dump mana. One thing to note, it says other creatures, so she does not count herself in the mana production, so just, count up your creatures and -1 when you produce mana with her. Up next is Eridu, Carrier of Dawn, a 5/5 elemental god, legendary creature, 3 colorless and 2 white, flying lifelink, gives all of your creature spells Convoke, and then at the beginning of your first main phase, you can pay 1. If you do, you transform Eridu, and Eridu turns into Isilu, Carrier of Twilight, 5/5 flying lifelink. Each other non-token creature you control has Persist, and then you can pay 1 white to flip it back at the beginning of your next main phase, your first main phase. So the thing with these main phase cards, these transform cards, it's your first main phase, so if you flipped it a turn, you can't flip it again until your next turn. Just like if you cast it in a turn, you can't transform it that turn. But I do like this card. I think it's a little slow, but the ability to convoke out creatures really reduces the mana cost. I can see this being run as, first turn you play it, you convoke out a bunch of creatures, have a protection, and then the next main phase you flip it and protect all of those creatures that you put on the board, because with Persist, when they die, if they didn't have a -1/-1 counter on them, they come back to the battlefield. So I think, and not a token heavy deck, but just a way to spit out a bunch of creatures so that you can protect your permanents there. Next card is Kin Binding, 3 colorless and 2 white. Creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. It's an enchantment, and then at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 green and white Kithkin creature token. This doesn't have to be run in Kithkin decks. If you are dumping a lot of creatures onto the board, it's going to be a good time. I think like Thassa relevant medium, where you create spirit tokens. I used to run a King of the Oathbreakers deck that, everything phased out. When they phased in, you created a bunch of spirit tokens. And I feel like this card would have pumped those spirits, because easily you could get 10 spirits out on the board. And I think it's a fun card, especially if you're running token strategies, especially if you can dump a lot of tokens onto the board. It is 5, so it's a little high in price, but I think it's worth it if you're planning on a big token strategy. Up next is Kinsayer Sentry, 1 colorless and 1 white. It's a 2/2 Kithkin Soldier. First strike, lifelink, and then whenever this creature attacks, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, where X is the number of attacking creatures you control. This card is crazy. I think this is going to be a lot of powerful 2-drops in the set, and this is no exception. If you're go wide strategy, you can easily be attacking with 5-6 creatures more, but here you can put a single. You can if you have a more high costly card in your hand, you can basically plop it onto the battlefield for free. You run this in Ishin, you get 2 triggers off of it. And if you put in a creature that whenever it attacks you create more tokens, it just builds upon itself. Winota can run this card. It's not a human, so it's a Kithkin, so I can see Winota having another tool for this card as well. Moving on to Morningtide's Light, 3 colorless and a white, for a sorcery. Exile any number of target creatures at the beginning of the next end step. Return those cards to the battlefield, tapped under their owner's control. Until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you, and then exile Morningtide's Light. So this is a way to flicker all of your permanents. You can also flicker your opponent's permanents. And then you also get the basically fog for an entire turn cycle around the table. So this is a super powerful card, especially for 4 mana. Note, if your opponent's playing tokens and you flicker all the tokens don't come back. So a good way to manage a board state, and I think it's going to be a super powerful, highly played card. It's going to most likely be expensive when it releases because it is a powerful effect. Last card in white I want to go over is Arias the Evermore, 1 colorless and 1 white, for a 2/2 legendary elf warrior creature. Has flash. When Arias enters the battlefield, another target creature you control gains persist until end of turn, so you can use it as protection. And then pay 1 white and tap him. Remove any number of counters from target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. In the current set in Lorwyn Eclipsed, there's a lot of -1/-1 counters going around. So basically pay 1, tap, and cleanse one of your creatures to save it. But I've seen a lot on the internet and a lot of speculation. This card should be slotted in basically any Saga deck. especially if you're running Saga creatures, Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings, in Kamigawa, because you can basically reset your Saga. And if you have a way to untap Reyes and you have extra white mana sitting around, you can do this multiple times in a turn and basically reset a few of your Saga creatures, so your best Saga creatures, to get the benefit of it. With that being said, that's my top picks for white in Lorwyn Eclipsed. I'll be back with a episode on each color. Feel free to comment on this, your favorite cards in white and Lorwyn Eclipsed, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.